who's ready to talk about Kyle Rittenhouse? So, there's just a whole bunch of information about him that's come out recently, and I know everybody's got opinions one way or another about Kyle Rittenhouse, about the different, oh my god, Necrochild, why? Fucking, hello. There, you get your war words. I know I said I was taking the war words away from like videos, but I'm sorry, it's happening anyway. I'm sorry, but I've cultivated an audience of degenerates, and I'm going to appeal to those degenerates in some way, shape, or form. Speaking of which, thank you for being on the right side of history, Axo. Oh, well. There you go. There's your limit for the stream. I'll get to the other ones afterwards. I will get to the other ones afterwards. If you guys are actively shoving more of them at me, they will be consummately ignored. But anyway, fine, old Gus. There, you did the thing. You did the thing. You got it, you degenerate. You do not need more for the rest of the video. So, for those who don't know, the whole Kyle Rittenhouse thing was basically, kid has mom drive him to another state. There is a BLM protest at the state, and the end result is the kid defends a store, TM, with a gun. Like, just, he takes a gun to a different state and then does that. Now, granted, there are a bunch of things to consider in the story, like how Kyle Rittenhouse technically only went a short distance because he was over state lines, the same way that, like, if I was living in North Georgia, like very, very North Georgia, going over state lines to Tennessee would be like a 20-minute drive. So, I understand the technicalities that are involved here. I'm not immune to them here. Said Kermit says it was his mom. Yeah, his mom who took him there. But the point is, that is the short version of the events there. People died, and then the court system found that it was self-defense, and there's a few reasons behind that we'll get into in a little bit of time. First, we're going to get into the fan art section, and then we'll talk about Rittenhouse here. So the first piece of fan art here actually comes from Kitterdoodle. Said, the mod team neither confirms nor denies any allegations of being followers of the cult of the Unblinking One. We have the current members of my moderation staff, Dorito Dave, Kitterdoodle, Ravalern, Corvid Keep, Mathematical Cabbage. Sorry, this is Sarah, this is not Kitterdoodle. Kitterdoodle's here. Brain. This is Sakura. And then, of course, Gainer is down here as a little plush because Gainer technically never took any of the mod exam stuff. Gainer was a trusted person, and they got mod status just in general from being a friend. And I was supposed to take it away, and then I didn't. So eventually, I'll take Gainer's mod status away like I'm supposed to, but for now, she's a mod. I don't know when I'm changing that, or if I'm ever changing that. I might just keep it just for giggles. But anyway, thank you, Kitterdoodle, for the artwork. Let's go ahead and go into what's happened here. So, this comes from David Hancock, who was one of the people who was instrumental in crafting the image of Kyle Rittenhouse that was used during the trial, right? During his trial, a lot of what he did was fabricated the same way that you would fabricate something for a stage. There was a image that needed to be portrayed so that there would be a sentimental jury primed to vote in favor for Kyle Rittenhouse. This is one of the people who was instrumental in doing so, and he decided to speak out about Kyle Rittenhouse himself. So let's go ahead and see here. Jacob says Kyle used actual ammo, not non-lethal ammo, therefore premeditated grievous bodily harm and or murder because he knew those bullets were potentially lethal. No, sorry, Jacob, it doesn't work that way. It does not work that way. When you go to the ammo shop, you don't buy non-lethal ammo. I'm sorry. When you are buying something to protect yourself, and it is like a 9mm round, you have access to range ammo, which will go through something, or you have access to hollow point ammo, which will go into something and stick there. You don't really have access to non-lethal ammo, generally speaking. Most people don't have that. Yeah, you don't generally go to the ammo store, and they don't generally have rubber bullets. Like, what ammo he brought with him is completely irrelevant to the conversation. Also, even non-lethal options like rubber bullets are still fully lethal. So, you know, I'm sorry, but the type of ammo brought is not a part of the conversation. I'm sorry. It just is not. You can get soft polymer rounds. There's waxed bullets, plastic bullets, beanbag rounds. There's rubber bullets. But I can guarantee you, if you go to an ammo store, not a single one of those will be on the shelf. Generally speaking. And again, those aren't non-lethal ammo. They are less lethal ammo. It's not the same thing. Again, we did a whole thing on rubber bullets. My channel actually got suspended on Twitch for doing the rubber bullets conversation because I showed pictures of rubber bullets injuries. But again, like, I can tell you from experience being in the South and going to several gun stores where I have bought my ammunition, I'm sorry, but the ammo you are mentioning is generally not on shelves, like, anywhere. So the point that he planned how he could have a legal gun is the premeditation he should have needed. I know, again, like, if you go to a place and you're carrying a weapon as a self-defense weapon, like, if I, for example, if I were to take my 9mm, there are some states where the way that I have to carry it is different based on the states that I'm in. Looking up the ways that I can go to those states safely and legally does not make, if I have to defend myself in those states, premeditated. Like, no, that's not how that works. That's not how any of... Jacob says, well, I'm educated now since I'm not a gun nut, but I, despite being former military, I just don't see the type of ammunition you bring with you as part of the premeditation conversation. And I have not seen the less lethal ammo sold at any store that I've been to. Like, I'm sorry, but that just doesn't jive with what I've seen. That doesn't jive with what I've seen when I've gone shopping. Said, but he wasn't a visitor, he went there to use that gun. Right, okay, so there's a difference, though. There's a difference. When something is premeditated, you are going there for the purpose of using a weapon in order to kill. We do not know that unless we are in the person's brain magically right now. But that's irrespective of the conversation. I'm not going to get derailed on it anymore. This is why I said that I know people have a ton of opinions on the Kyle Rittenhouse thing. You're free to have those opinions, and I am now free to ignore them. We're strictly talking about what has happened here recently with the case. Kermit says, that's a psychopath? No, a psychopath is somebody who doesn't have access to their mirror neurons. We also don't use the term psychopath anymore in mental health anything. But, irrespective. Again, psychopathy and sociopathy are an inability to use the mirror neurons for a person. And that results in them having a lack of empathy. But okay, back to the story. So David Hancock, one of the people who was instrumental in crafting the persona that Kyle Rittenhouse used during his trial, and eventually would latch onto in an effort to try to gain or maintain notoriety and fame, said, is anyone surprised that Kyle's far-right political handlers ensured this particular detail didn't make it into his book? Regarding his online high school diploma, we had to force him to complete the 4 years of credits in just 10 months, which he did using the Google machine. We invested a significant effort to craft the image you witnessed during his trial. We outfitted him in new suits, arranged for his haircut every weekend during the trial, and dedicated over 200 hours to prepare him for direct and cross-examination. We employed the world's leading jury consultant and conducted extensive research through 3 mock trials to identify the ideal jurors that would have the most effective approach for his testimony. So, if anybody wants to know how fucked the legal system is, this is what I wanted to talk about. This is the thing that I was interested in. I am less interested in whether or not Kyle should have technically, under the definitions in our legal system, gone to jail. I'm not super interested in that conversation. What I am interested in is how much goddamn effort had to go in order to make that result happen in the first place. And as a further conversation, I want to talk about how weird it is that any of this should have to happen for anyone. And if somebody were, say, less well-connected, less well-prepared, less well-provided for, how they might be in a similar situation and then just lose the trial because they didn't have access to just an astronomical amount of funding to make this happen. Rainey says, I'd rather get out than use force. Yeah, I'd rather get out too. And any gun safety class will teach you to flee before you fight. Transforming a middle school dropout who was angry at the world with a history of violence and an unhealthy obsession with guns and killing into a, quote, respectable young man with a desire for higher education and a promising future was no easy feat. So, again, these are the words exactly from the person who was in charge of the image of Kyle Rittenhouse. These are his words. These are the words he chose to use. This is the part I find interesting. Because think about how many people might be not quite as bad. Not that that's a hard thing to do, but not quite as bad as Kyle Rittenhouse will still find themselves in a similar situation where they might have to employ self-defense. Again, not concerned with whether that particular conversation of was it self-defense, was it not. Not the purpose of this. The purpose of this is people going through the justice system who don't have this massive amount of backing that can change their image overnight into something completely different. How fucked is it for those people to not have that same level of protection? There are a few people whose lawyers can even remember their cases because they have to have a public defendant who's worn absolutely thin. He said that it was Kyle Rittenhouse had a meticulously crafted facade, which we sincerely hoped he would grow into. That's an interesting point. The idea was to take somebody who we knew was not worth that kind of time, not worth that kind of money, not worth that kind of shit, and try to give them shoes to grow into. That's weird. That is a very, very strange way to go about something. We don't accept that this person is or is not worthwhile. We've just created an image, a fake image, that is worthwhile, and hopefully maybe one day he'll be worthy of that image. This is not the same thing as taking a disenfranchised person and trying to give them a better set of 2 feet and legs to stand on. This is a little more fucked than that. Because one of those things is actually, like, acceptable and redeemable, and the other one is, well, let's go ahead and make this kid who killed a person, and that's the only thing he's fucking famous for, let's go ahead and make him into a superstar for the right. Like, that's functionally what this was. Yeah, failed attempt at grooming, basically. He then squandered a full scholarship that he could have used to study any subject at any university in the country, and instead decided to become a divisive douchebag and antagonize Black Americans on college campuses. Kyle failed to learn a single thing. He remains the same uneducated, arrogant, and antagonistic individual incapable of telling the truth. Again, this is from one of the people responsible for creating this image of Kyle Rittenhouse. This is the description given by the people who built the facade. Not people like me, who are looking at this from the outside, who are having an opinion from the outside. This is from people on the inside who have regretted what they did. Now he genuinely believes that he's the show pony we created, and he is now surrounded by sycophants who fuel his inflated ego because they prioritize their political agenda and their Christian nationalist worldview over his well-being. He then says that despite my efforts to guide him towards a better path in life, the allure of notoriety triumphed over the prospect of putting in the hard work, of pursuing education. Kyle is ill-equipped to offer any advice to young people, and I regret my role in shaping him into whatever he has become. If I had known what I know now about Kyle's history, I wouldn't have been involved. And of course, the image that is provided here. Let's take a look at it. In follow-up to the Rittenhouse request, the most received confirmation to the RS military. Okay, so this is just him showing that he has stuff that did come in from the Rittenhouse situation. So one of the things that did come out about Rittenhouse was his ASVAB score. Apparently he scored, what was it? A 10? He scored a 10? How do you score a 10 on the ASVAB? How do you do that? Good evening. In follow-up to the Rittenhouse request, the most received confirmation through the U.S. Army and USMC recruiting commands on January 20th, he took the ASVAB and did not meet service eligibility requirements. His test score was far below the required minimum and was permanently disqualified from entering in the USMC, the Marines. You have to score a 31 on the ASVAB. You have to score a 31 on the ASVAB to get into the Marines. They will literally take you so long as you're breathing and not choking on too much exhaust fumes. Anybody who has been a Marine will tell you two things. The Marines have a very cult-like atmosphere, and also getting into the Marines is about as easy as sneezing or breathing. The only things that you need to get in are passing the ASVAB with a very, very minimal score, and also not being severely overweight. It is easier to get in the Marines than anything else. The Army is a bit harder to get into. The ASVAB score and weight limitations are a little more restrictive. The hardest one to get into is the Air Force. So take that with a huge grain of salt. The people grooming him are awful people, telling them you regret it after is not selling me on you being a good person. The dude's not trying to sell us on him being a good person. Not that I know of. I would have joined the Air Force if I could pass the weight. But I could not pass the weight requirements. Now, granted, at my age, I just would not be able to get into the Air Force at all. Not really. Technically, you can get into the Air Force as long as you are under 42 years of age. But I would not be able to get in based on the weight requirements. In any way, shape, or form. Jacob says Kyle Rittenhouse made jarheads look like Einstein. Yeah, basically. Basically. If your score is so low that you are permanently disqualified from joining the Marines, I'm sorry, but your mental faculties are so not there. It is astounding. It is just astounding. I'm not going to lie. For the insurance, I've actually considered just shedding the weight with keto and trying to join the Air Force anyway. Like, I recognize it's not a great decision, but the insurance alone has made me want to do it. I'm not even gonna lie. Rainy says, I'd rather not go into the military. I resent it a lot. It would have been a good fit, but I don't like traveling. Nah, understandable. Altfact says, why not just be a cop? I'd really rather not be a cop. Also, like, if I went Air Force, I could just do the same thing my dad did, go Master Load Sergeant. Like, go on that particular career path. It would be a very safe career path, and you'd still be, again, safe. Paige says, why is Air Force harder than Marines? So, mostly because if you're in the Marines, we care if you have a gun and can shoot it. If you're in the Air Force, generally, we care if we can put you in a hotel with a nice fluffy pillow. There's more to it than that, but there's... Some of the jobs in the Air Force require a little more mental fortitude than some of the ones in the Marines. Said Air Force is cushy, according to my mom. Yeah, and I don't see why we wouldn't want to do the cushy job. Like, I recognize it's cushier than the other jobs in the military, but it's still not a cushy job. PT alone will kick your fucking ass. There is more, though, to this than just that. See, David Hancock actually had a bit more information for us to dig into. So the rest of the story was that Kyle was blacklisted for sending unsolicited videos of him field stripping his AR-15 to his military recruiters, which made them uncomfortable with his state of mind. Think Full Metal Jacket. Again, not everybody in the military ends up being a gun nut. Not everybody in the military is a gun nut. Said this guy's weird. They said, yeah, they literally saw him doing the gun stuff and went, maybe not you, buddy. Maybe not you. Said this guy's weird. They said, need health insurance, welcome, and all voluntary military maintained by capitalism. Yeah. No, believe me, like, my preferred thing would not be joining the military. But I also recognize that the career path that the military allows for is a very, very safe path. Like, a ridiculously safe path when it comes to you and your family's future. Said someone said that Jiff did think Full Metal Jacket was another Stanley Kubrick. Okay. So look, I've been thinking about being a cop lately. I mean, look, if you want to do it, then go ahead. Just understand the stigma that's associated with it, and understand that there's corruption everywhere around you. Mostly because you want to be... What? What? Alt fact, maybe don't. Maybe don't. Like, especially after everything that happened with Floyd. Maybe don't. Maybe don't. Randy says, I realize the military is not for me. I have my own personal philosophies about the egregious amount of money that is spent there. In Louisiana, they just destroyed a 2-year-old building because of the money they had to spend by the end of the year. Jesus. Like, I have a lot of problems with what the United States decides to prioritize militarily. I do. I also recognize that surviving long-term is a thing that I'm maybe just a little tired of doing on scratch feed and inability to function. And that's just kind of been how things have been for a while. That's just me. Kitsune says, I remember seeing a video that showed that some police forces have been infiltrated by the KKK. I do not disbelieve it. I don't disbelieve it. You met a lady in university who said we had to go to the shooting range and spend 4,000 bullets to make a quota? Jesus Christ. Especially in the South, that's pretty common from what I understand. Yeah. But in some places, the police started from the KKK, basically. Yeah, no, we in the States, we actually had a lot of officers start out in the early years from the... It wasn't the KKK, it was the squads that went to round up slaves who tried to escape. Yeah, the slave patrols. Not the KKK, but the slave patrols. That said, at this point, I'm only going to derail further. So, thank you all for watching. That's been my look into what Hancock was saying about Kyle Rittenhouse and all that shit. It's astounding to me that this is a person who can even look forward to having a career where he's publicly seen. Rittenhouse specifically. Knowing how much work went into creating a fake Kyle Rittenhouse, basically. Hella says, as a middle-aged man, I can't help but think 4 years of my youth, and I would have had a lifetime of free healthcare right now. What? Hold on. How long for full military healthcare? Pretty sure. Entered activities to do, must have served 24 continuous months. "36 months lets you qualify for benefits, but don't you lose those benefits when you leave?" Anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section below before I get more fully derailed. Insert end of video tagline here. Hey, I just quickly want to give a thank you to all of my wonderful patrons who keep this show running. YouTube and Twitch are a pretty bumpy ride at the best of times, and the stability a Patreon provides me is worth more than I can say here. I'd also like to thank each and every one of my $20 and up patrons here, and they would be Red Joker, Britzkrieg, Cameron, Dren, Jemshin, Smiling DM, Poundini, Mabbity Babbity, Naomi, Isaac, Nixie-chan, the Oberon team, Agamotto, Jordan, Ravi, Giuni, Kiratorian, Prisma, all of you, I'm not saying that part, and Starlight. And finally, thank you to everyone else that helps keep this channel alive. While you're here, why not check out another video? And thank you for watching.